Okay, here we go. Chapter 12, an introduction quick, so that you guys have time to review and ask me questions. So, this is the famous painting of the French Revolutions. Some people think, I need my book. Some people think that this is the French Revolution that we just finished. Actually, this is the painting of the French Revolution of Les Mis. This is it. We are here. Mm-hmm.
Is that a woman?
Yes, that is Liberty leading the troops. I don't know why Liberty always has one breast bared.
On one of the quarters, the U.S. quarters from the early 20th century had her breast.
Yes, and
They
it
had to make another edition to
cover her up. Doesn't surprise me. We are starting on page 428, which is where the painting is. This is the French Revolution of 1830. What? We are in chapter 12, friend, yes. But this is Liberty with the tricolor of France leading the people against the soldiers. You can see in the back a barricade. Just like in the movie, it's not that far off. Barricades were basically any kind of furniture that they closed off the streets. You'll read about it over break.
And we're going to make one.
Yes, and we're going to keep people out of the room. There's actually a funny post that circulates on Facebook every once in a while of the teacher that was barricaded out of the classroom, and he's like, really? Really? Like French Revolution students. Yeah, and everybody's inside like, try and get us. Yeah, thanks. Don't get any fun ideas for after break. Get here and V, I think you're needed out in the hall. Okay, what? Yes, senior prank, late April Fool's Day prank. But we are moving into a time of conservatism. Things are getting more and more conservative across Europe because we've had enough liberalism. French Revolution, Napoleon, even though he was conservative, he was a conservative player. It was a very liberal movement, what he was doing. And so we have then the conservative Europe that we talked about in the last unit with the Congress of Vienna. And they agree that one nation cannot take major action in international affairs without working with the others. This is a very early version of all for one and one for all. This is the idea of the United Nations. This is the idea of the 14 points plan and the Versailles Treaty. This is all right there. It's just the start of it. So we're going to try and do this. This is our plan. This is the plan of Prince Klaus von Metternich, or Clemens von Metternich, not Klaus, but Clemens von Metternich, and he of Austria. This is his thought child, and he's going to make this work. And so we have this Congress system. The Congress system, which is the Congress of Vienna. Congress is people coming together to discuss, just like we have the Congress in Washington, D.C., people from all over coming to discuss and figure things out together. So we get that idea from. And the Congress of Vienna removes troops from France after they had paid their war reparations. What is a reparation?
Like what you have to pay after you lose the war.
The war debt. Okay, because you lost, this is your punishment in payment.
Germany, it's always down.
Didn't like last year pay off?
Yeah.
Within the last, what year was it, Mr. Jaden? Do you remember what year it was that they paid off the war reparations? We talked about it in honors. Yeah.
Like, it was honestly...
Like within the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just finished paying off World War I. So soon World War II will be out of there. They were paying to France and Britain. That's who were getting the war reparations. Yep. Germany was. Yes.
What if, like, France was the person that got attacked first? Like, I know they weren't, but if some other country attacked them and they lost, would they have to pay reparations if they didn't even start the war?
If they went excessively aggressive back.
Yeah. Yeah, the reason why they had to pay that so much is because they never wanted Germany to rise again. I think it's kind of like court, like you caused the accident, or like you are the end of the accident, so you have to pay the debt type of deal. So Tsar Alexander I of Russia, this is the guy who hated Napoleon because he feels like Napoleon jilted his sister, wants to keep the quadruple alliance and keep the existing borders. He said, this is going to work. If we just work with this, this is going to work. But then we have Castlereagh, who is the British guy, says, no, we only needed this alliance to stop France. Now that France is dead, so to say, under the Napoleonic rule, we can get rid of this alliance. It was good while we needed it. It was good while it lasted, but we don't need to continue this. And so we have this argument going back and forth in the Congress of Vienna and in the Congress system. Do we need these alliances or not? The Congress of Vienna would say no, because we're all friends together. We don't need these alliances. This friendship is going to get us out. But Castlereagh, because he's separated, lovely English Channel, he says, I don't think we need this. But Tsar Alexander, who's in the thick of it, says, I think it's always good to have a friend in your back pocket. Because what if? What if there is a country who doesn't want to listen to this idea? And so it's very much a philosophical debate amongst these leaders in the Congress until things start getting hot again on the European continent, especially in France, because France is not done revolting yet. They're going to revolt and revolt and revolt. And so, despite Castlereagh, everybody else on the continent is like, Britain, you weren't attacked, you weren't invaded by somebody like France. You did not experience that because you're across the water. So just let us protect ourselves as we see fit. And so the European statesmen believed that preventing domestic unrest was key to maintaining international peace. If we don't have peace at home, if we are not friends with ourselves, we cannot be friends with each other. I have to love myself first before I can love you. To put it into a dating idea, why are you breaking up with me? Because I have to find peace within me. It's not me. Or it's not you. It's me. Okay? And so we have to find peace at home. Domestic peace. And then, because think about it, if a country's warring with themselves, having a civil breakout, are they going to be able to come together and fight with another country? No, because nobody's paying attention to outside. You're only paying attention to what's going on inside. And so we need to do this. Most European people believe with Alexander I. They're against Castlereagh's idea of getting rid of this stuff. So then we have the conservatives, the pillars that they said we need. In order to keep this peace, we need to keep this conservative idea. And what this is, conservatism at this point, to define it, they wanted legitimate monarchies, a king that is put there because of family, not a usurper, not a pretender, not a guy that we're just going to pick like Napoleon and say, hey, be our leader. These people are meant to rule, and sometimes for good or for worse, but you're meant to rule. They like aristocracies, have the top going down. Why is everybody equal? That doesn't work. And they're looking at the French Revolution. And they said, yeah, they made everybody equal. That was successful. We can't continue with that. And they wanted established churches. People need religion. Religion is the answer for so many people. And faith keeps people peaceful. Because Jesus doesn't teach us to go out and fight. And so we can fall back on that idea. If we get rid of religion, we get rid of the cornerstone of so many people's systems. Yes?
So is this, is this kind of like the old regime again?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep, because they disliked the Enlightenment. They want to bring it back. Yes? Yes. So, we do bring it back. They did not want written constitutions. Why would conservatives not want a written constitution?
Then there are laws that they can prove that they're doing wrong.
Yep. It's out there, right? It's in black and white. This is what you can do, this is what you can't do. If it's not written down, it can be fluid. You can go back and forth. And so, we needed to keep constitutions away. We also disliked the Enlightenment because that let people think. That made people want change. And conservatives, they like the poor people to be sheeple. Sheep people. Just follow along. This is the ancient regime. This is the old regime. So, going old school again. Going old school. Big time. And yeah. And then we get our next ism. We had conservatism, now we have nationalism. This is that Olympic feeling. USA, USA. When the Olympic comes and there we all are wearing our USA t-shirts. And we can't wait to see Michael Phelps win another 17 gold medals through swimming. What? He does do drugs. Yes. They might bring him back for the next Olympics, though, I read.
That's okay. He was supposed to be done in Greece. And
Yeah.
then he was like, no, I'm done.
I'm not done.
He's back. And
Yeah.
then, no, I'm done.
Yeah.
And he's back.
Yep. And Missy Franklin's coming back for the next one. I like her. I want to teach her, actually, because I think she'd be fun. What?
She was 16.
Yeah, she was 16 at the last Olympics. What? No, this is the girl swimmer that was like so like approachable, and everybody's like, "Wow, you're so normal." Yes.
I think she went professional and took money for something, so I'm not sure she's allowed to do that.
Ah.
Wait, what?
Missy Franklin may have gone professional. Even if she's in college and she's swimming for her college team?
Yeah,
I thought she was swimming for a college team.
I think
I don't
if
know.
you make money from it, you're not allowed to
To
be
like go back?
yeah.
Okay.
Because I think that you're on a professional level, so you're seen as like higher than everyone else in the sport.
Right.
So you like they think that you have an unfair advantage.
Okay. Well, we'll have to see. Yes.
I think in in the Olympic hockey they have NHL players. So.
And they did in basketball too, like the 92 Dream Team or whatever was like Michael Jordan and all like the greatest ever. And we like mopped the floor at the Olympics.
Don't they still like mop the floor for basketball?
Yeah. Yeah. But that one year when they had like the best and the brightest of the NBA, I'm like, even then my brother was like, this just isn't fair. They were, it's Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen playing against, the Belarusian whoever's. So, nationalism, people are brought together by common bonds of language, custom, culture, and history. What makes you American? Not the fact that you live in the continental 48 or the two outliers, but what makes you American? The fact that we all do this. Or what makes you Midwestern? What makes you a Wisconsinite? What combines you with Wisconsinites? Culvers. Totally Culvers. Cheese curds. I mean, if you think, what defines a Wisconsinite? Cheese curds, brats, the Packers, the Badgers, the Brewers-ish on a good year, which is 1-8. But yeah, so what is bringing you all together? And then this idea developed with the beginning of the rise of nations. That we're moving away from like the Holy Roman Empire and we're moving towards Austria and Germany, and France is becoming more French. Like we had the unification of France back during the 100 Years' War, but now what makes you French though? Like yeah, you're French, but what makes you French? What makes you British? So the late 1700s, early 1800s, this is coming together. And people were proud of who they were. They took pride in who they were and what they were. And here we have, this is an interesting picture because this shows like national costume. What did people wear by region? What was their national costumes? And this is looking at the different national groups just in Hungary. This is located on page 435. 435. And so going down the road, we have the Wallachians, which are the Romanians. Then we get this handsome couple, and they're the Hungarians. The Hungarian group. This is the Slavs, or the Slovaks. And then we have the Germans. And you can see the national custom, the national dress. And what they wear. And this is a thing of pride. Think of Little Shoot. We have, what? The Dutch. And we have, you know, at their, when they used to have kermis, because they don't have kermis anymore, but they have at their cheese fest, they have the klompen dancers. The kids and adults that learn how to do the wooden shoe dances. Oops. And so that's part of that like pride of their area. You have the Irish dancers when you see them with the big curly hair and the dress and the step dancing where only their feet are going and their arms are down by their sides. Yeah, Lord of the Dance. Ta-da! And they're done. That's the Irish type of deal. You have the, if you think of like the Southern dress or the, you know, when you think of American dress, sometimes you pull out the giant hoop-skirted gowns that don't fit through doors. Some people dress that way if you're dressing like in American style. And that brings together the nation idea. There were some people that were questioning how you should create nationalism. And this causes tension across the European landscape. Some nationalists said that you shouldn't be based on who's your leader because leaders are fluid. Borders are fluid. And we learned that throughout historical time already. That is like within Poland, with all the different segregations of Poland, of the changing borders of the HRE, things are always changing. So you can't say, well, okay, I'm German, but then, you know, 20 years from now, I might be Austrian, or I might be Czech, or I might be something else. It's what are your people? Not your leader, but what are your people? What are your customs? And that's nationalism. Not your leader. It doesn't matter because that is fluid. But your customs of your area, that is not. And so we should base it on ethnicity instead of dynasties or monarchies as for national unity. What are your customs? And the nation should be based on qualities of people. What are the people like? The everyday people, not their leader. Because again, leaders come and go. That's fluid. The people, the you and me, are always there. But then there's confusion because you have the majority of people. But then you have those small little groups. Sometimes they're religious groups, but they don't fill into the norm. So what do we do about them? So our national identity by and large is German, but then we've got these little groups of, you know, we've got a small group of Swiss over in that area. Well, is that our national identity or not? How do we choose that then? And so we have a lot of debate about what do we do with all the minority groups. And in Europe, especially Central Europe, we have so many small groups. France, you're French. British, you're British. But Central Europe, just like this picture, these are all people in one different country. So what are we? Are we Slovak? Are we Romanian? How do we identify ourselves? And so that causes issue. Lots and lots of issue. Who is what? So then we got to create these nations. How do you pick what a nation is? And so they said, well, the best way to do this is to look at language. Let's create nations on language. Because most French speak French. They may speak a dialect of French, but they're French. Well, then again, though, in Central Europe, which is where we have a lot of questions for the next 75 years or so, the languages are different. This group over here speaks German. This group speaks a mix of German and Russian. Okay, so this group speaks this. It's kind of like when you go across the United States. And we know what we're saying when you want to pop. But then you go to Georgia, and they ask you what kind of Coke you want. You're like, I want Sprite. So you want a Sprite Coke? Yes. You want that in a koozie? A hoo-hoo? All right, a frozen mug. I don't know. What's a koozie? And people here, you know, I want to pop. You want me to hit you? You want your grandfather? What do you want? No, a can of pop? Oh, soda. Yeah, it's changing to soda, but I still call it a can of pop. Yeah. We here used to have an ATM called a time machine. I say time machine.
So there's
And my cousin that grew up in Texas, she's like, we were together several years ago, and she was home for something. And I said, well, I gotta run through the time machine before we go out. And she's like, what are you gonna do? Where are you gonna go? I'm like, what do you need? She's like, you're going in a time machine? I'm like, at the bank, get some cash, because I don't want to have to pay for everything with my credit card. That's an ATM, Janie. Yeah, that's what I said, a time machine. She's like, and like, we had this big philosophical discussion as to why you're being wrong.
Yeah, it was TYME.
Yeah, take your money everywhere. TYME.
There was one in the parking lot by the weird church.
Yes.
Like out.
Yep, time. So then we get this unifying language, but this causes problems. This causes problems because you may say your language is German, but then you have your small little dialect of a mix of German, Swiss, and Russian, and that's what Grandma and Grandpa speak at home, and that's what you grew up speaking, but then you go to school and you're learning straight German. So now we're getting this disassociation across people. The older generations who weren't schooled in straight German are not able to connect anymore culturally with the new generations that learning just German in school. That causes issue amongst your people. Because that's not a common language then. Because not everybody is speaking it. It's going to take several generations for that to work its way through. And when you're thinking in the here and now, when people can't communicate within your country, that's a problem. And so the dialect was leaving. Like we would call Yooper speak, was leaving. And just the straight language was staying. Causes tension amongst the people. So what does it mean to be a nation? What does this mean? And some people said that nationalism was based on eliminating dynastic states and having administrative and economic efficiency. No more family being handed down, handed down, handed down. Make it more straightforward. Nations should determine their own destiny instead of one person calling all the shots. Other argues that nations were created and kept on the basis of the divine order of things. This is how God meant for it to be. We should keep it. Because God created the nations, and so it must stay. It's always hard to argue the God card. Well, yeah, but then we're also coming out of that Enlightenment period, and with the Romantics coming in and bringing God back, it's a valid argument. And then we have, not all the ethnic groups became nations. We have these smaller groups, and we're not going to make just a small little group of, Wallachians or the Bohemians. There's a region of Bohemia within Czechoslovakia, but there is no direct country of Bohemia because it's not big enough to sustain an economy, to sustain a government, and they can't compete. So then we have tension there. So how do we balance this all together? Very difficult. And so, nationalists challenged political status quo in 6 different European areas. England brought Ireland under British rule. England went in and just said, here we go, Ireland, you're part of us. And the Irish are like, no, we're not. But you have Britain going up against Ireland. They got a government. They're strong enough, but they weren't strong enough to overcome the force of the British.
Is it part of Ireland still part of the UK?
Northern Ireland, yes. Yep. And so they got rid of the Irish Parliament and they allowed the Irish to elect members to the British Parliament. But the Irish nationalists said that this is ridiculous. We should have our own government. Tension, tension, tension. We were doing fine. And the British are like, no, you're not. You are not fine. Because you're not part of us. We were fine enough. Germany was dealing with Austria and Prussia. They wanted an all German-speaking nation. But then we have Prussia and Austria which were kind of German, but they also had large non-German speaking people. So what do we do with them? Yes?
When did Germany become like more important than Austria and Prussia? Because prior to this in history, like Germany's not even really a thing, and Austria and Prussia are huge, but then like Austria and Prussia get divided amongst Germany?
Ish, yes. 1871 is the official unification of Germany. Right now, this Germany is a German Confederation. So you have Prussia, German Confederation, which is kind of like a very small version of the former HRE, and then you have Austria. And Austria and Prussia are hanging on by a thread of being more important. But Germany, with this confederation of like-minded people, they're starting to grow bigger and bigger and bigger and more powerful. And then eventually they get a leader in Otto von Bismarck that just blows them all out of the water. So what do we do in this area? And again, this is that problem area of the HRE, which has been a problem since the Golden Bull of the 1200s. Too many people, Maria Theresa had the same problem. Too many people, too many cultures, too much everything. What do we do? And then Italy sought to take over the Italian peninsula from Austria. Austria had the northern part of the Italian peninsula. They needed to take it back. How are we going to do that? We need to fix it. We also had Poland. Poor Poland. We're going to be a nation. We are this time. Russia's like, no, you're not. Poland's like, just let us try. Let us try to become a nation. And Russia just won't give up that territory. And then Austria has problems. This is the Maria Theresa problem all over again. We've got Hungarians, Czechs, and Slovenes are trying to get away from Austria. And Austria's like, no, you're part of us. And they're like, no, we're not. We need to get out and be on our own. And they just were not big enough or strong enough to be on their own. But they wanted to be. They tried. Yeah?
I'm just having a real issue with the word Slavians.
Oh, this one? I always learned it Slovaks.
Yeah, or Slovakians.
Yeah.
That's what my mom calls it. Her grandma's from there. So.
Yeah. I don't know why the book calls them Slovenes, but yeah, Slovaks. I agree. First time I read it in the book, I'm like, that's a weird way of saying it. We have more people trying to gain independence. The Serbs, the Greeks, the Albanians, the Romanians, and the Bulgarians are trying to get away from the Ottoman Turks and the Russians. This is way far East Europe. To sum it all up, Central Europe is a mess. Because not too many, because we don't want to count anybody out and say that they're not worthy of being there. But so many nationalities that are so proud of themselves. You know, if they had t-shirts, they would have worn them. Slovakian pride. Bulgarian pride. Yes.
What are the odds that they were talking about the Slovenians? Is like Slovenia's a place?
I don't think it was a place then, though. You're a good point, though. We'd have to see when Slovenia showed up. Yes?
Okay, Slovene refers to the language in Slovenia.
But when did Slovenia show up?
18th century. It's on
1700s.
Yeah.
Nice.
Right now, it's like Republic of
There it is. What?
What?
Oh.
Right
What?
now they use it in the Republic of Slovenia.
Republic of Slovenia.
Yeah. But
Where the Slovak? Oh, I guess the Slovaks then are.
With the Czechs? Because like it's Czechoslovakia at this point. It's like Czech Republic and Slovakia.
Right. Oh. Ah. Do you ever have a sore in your mouth and then you bite it and it only makes it worse? That burns. Okay, there we go. Thank you, gentlemen. Huzzah. So, these folks are trying to get away from the Ottomans and the Russians. They want to make their own state. But again, not big enough, not strong enough, not economically stable enough to do it for themselves. Tension. And nationalism is not always super strong. It comes and goes. There's moments where we're like all proud to be an American, and then we're like, meh. Post 9/11, we were selling proud to be an American t-shirts off the rack like crazy. Because we were so proud. Everybody was wearing the red, white, and blue. And then it fades. And then the Olympics come back, and there we are again. And then it fades away. And, oh, another Olympics. And it fades. 4th of July.
4th of July.
Halloween. It comes and it goes. And so people, as it rises up, they try to do something about it, they get squashed, and it comes back down. So definitely ebbs and flows. Okay, so moving on then to liberalism. So we had conservatism, going old school. Nationalism, pride in your country, figuring out how, though, to make a country. Is it by economy? Is it by language, which is how they did it? Is it by nationalistic feeling? How do we do this? And then we have the liberals. Most of the liberals, by definition, were teachers. Surprise, surprise. Trend somewhat holds true yet today. Or wealthy. But the wealthy that were not allowed to be in the political process. This is, again, kind of that upper middle class. They want to get into the ruling class, but they can't because of birth or profession, and so they want change. They go up against the monarchies, they go up against the established old school governments because they are not included. These are the folks that ran to the tennis courts to make a say. The liberals, we're going to change it. This is not going to work for us. What did they want? Legal equality. Surprise, surprise. They want to get in on the government level. Religious toleration. Why be hating? We don't need to hate. Freedom of the press. Let us respectfully show our opinion. Respectfully show our opinion. And written constitutions. Put those rules out there so that everybody has to follow, from king to dirt poor farmer. Everybody is following together. And so what did they want in economic goals? Free trade, no tariffs. Buy from whatever you want. Make countries open their trading. Just get the best products out there for your people. Not heavily taxed ones. Less government regulation. Hands off government. Don't let the government be in control of everything. And then we get into two folks here. We've got economic reform. We've got Malthus and Ricardo. If you've taken economics, I would assume that these guys show up in your discussion. Anybody take economics? AP? Oh, yeah, he would show up there too. Yep. Thomas Malthus. And he says that sooner or later, the working class is going to get pooped on again. Because we have such great conditions now that people are healthy and they are procreating at a great rate. Well, you're going to get to the point again, and this happens in population trends, that we're going to have too many people and we're not going to be able to supply the world. And so that we won't have enough food for all the people, which means that things are going to get ugly again. And we're going to have a major die-off, and then it'll come back, and it cycles. Malthus is straight on with that theory, because we have to have this deal. And then Ricardo says we're going to see these other vicious cycles. If you make more money, you will be able, I feel like this is a if you give a mouse a cookie type book. If you make more money, you will be able to buy better food. If you buy better food, you will be healthier. If you are healthier, you will procreate more successfully. If you procreate successfully, you will have lots of babies. Lots of babies means more people in the labor field, which means more people will be out of a job because there's not enough jobs for the people, which means people will become poor and they will not eat well, and then they will not have babies. And then the population will decrease. And then there will be jobs for the people. And then they will make money. And they will buy good food. And they will eat. And they will have babies. Yes?
Is that what's kind of going on now in our country?
Mm-hmm.
Well, finishing, kind of starting over.
Yep. The cycle is turning.
The baby boom.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. The baby boom. And then we had folks not having babies. For either because they couldn't afford it or because they were like, a lot of people didn't have a lot of babies in like the 80s and 90s because they were working. Women were able to get into the workforce And so they're like, I could stay home and have 6 kids in the suburbs, or I can go to college and get a job. And I don't have time for that. So yeah, we're starting to cycle over again now. So these two guys kind of go together. Fascinating thoughts here, because the cycles make total sense, doesn't it? It's all about food supply. You got to have the food supply and you got to have the wages to follow it. And this is the beginning of these economy rules. This is all based off of who? That's it. The basis for all of this is Adam Smith's The Wealth of Nations and the idea of laissez-faire. And this appealed to the middle class because they got it. They were educated enough to see this. And they saw how it could benefit and how maybe it wouldn't benefit. And so the liberals wanted an economic structure that dealt with this. And most of this is based on the working class. The lower level working class. So how do we put these two together? Nationalism to liberalism. It could be inconsistent. Like, this doesn't always work because some nationalists wanted to dominate particular national or ethnic groups within a particular region. Excuse me.
He goes to Costco.
Yeah, that, just so you know what I'm doing over spring break while you're having fun.
He goes to Target and Patrick.
Go to the same.
He goes to Target. This is me. Scrubs are gone.
Who goes to Costco on Monday school?
This is me cleaned outside of all four kids.
So they're outside of the
So that the carpet stays clean. I scrub it once a year.
This is me has dinner with me in law.
Well, I had a whole blank row of calendar and it was driving me nuts, so I had to fill it in with something.
That's another pan of people.
Wait, what do you want us to read over?
Chapter 12.
That says on Saturday through 28.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
On the 28th it says for you.
Read chapter 12.
Okay, Ross. Okay, that makes sense.
Yep. But then we could also be compatible with liberalism. Nationalists could gain liberal support by espousing the ideas of representative government, civil liberties, and economic freedom. That nationalism can work together with the ideas of liberalism. That we can bring them all together. So it kind of, like, as the book says, they don't necessarily have to even be related. They're not even logically linked together, but sometimes they go together and sometimes they do. Or they don't, excuse me. They do go together and sometimes they don't. It depends on your outlook on it. Nonetheless, though, liberalism and nationalism were not identical. They were often compatible. Okay, and that's where we're going to leave off. So liberalism, keep the change started by the Enlightenment. Nationalism, make a country that works for the people, not for the leader. And that's tension-filled, especially in Central Europe. Conservatism, bring back old school. Monarchies, no constitution, aristocracy. Which just to me screams fail, fail, fail. But wait till you see how it plays out. Because who holds the power here? But do they? But do they?